Let's open the book on this. Today in Albany, New York, a local coach's shocking dismissal, a chaotic concert arrest at MVP Arena, and the Hudson River's long-running fish advisory still stirring debate. Quick hits with real impact, right here at home. Hi, I'm Leah.
And I'm Garrett.
Welcome to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in Albany, New York. First up, in a disturbing turn of events, the Greater Amsterdam School District has fired an assistant coach who's been charged with raping a child. Here's the rundown. Police arrested 27-year-old Jared T. Baldizin on March 16th for allegedly raping a student in the spring of 2024. At the time, he had been involved with the varsity boys lacrosse program and, separately, had also worked at the Broadalbin Perth Central School District, that's the neighboring district west of Amsterdam. He was also employed by the New York State Thruway Authority, which manages the toll highway system. The Amsterdam School Board voted on March 21st to fire him. Charges on the table are felony third-degree rape and third-degree criminal sexual act. Felony just means a more serious crime category. Baldizin is due back in court on March 31st for what's expected to be a procedural appearance. And as districts usually stress in these cases, they're prioritizing student safety and cooperating closely with law enforcement.
Yeah, that hits different. I'm surprised he was still on a state payroll at the time of the arrest. I mean, I get that an arrest isn't a conviction, but when we're talking about alleged harm to a student, you want every safeguard. That's where, tight background checks and ongoing monitoring matter most, not just one and done when someone gets hired.
Totally. Quick question, though. Why would he still be listed as employed at all?
Often there's a lag, right? Agencies place someone on administrative leave first, which is basically a hold while they sort facts and follow due process. That can look like they're still employed, even if they're not active on the job. Not gonna lie, that gap can feel frustrating in sensitive cases like this. Next up, a 21-year-old man from Troy is facing multiple charges after a violent outburst at Cloverfest at MVP Arena on Saturday, March 21st. Cloverfest is that hip-hop concert event downtown. According to the Albany County Sheriff's Office, deputies stepped in when security struggled to remove the man. During the encounter, he allegedly punched a sheriff's sergeant in the head and resisted arrest. He's now charged with second-degree assault, resisting arrest, and obstruction of governmental administration. The sergeant was treated at a local hospital and released, which is good to hear. Arraignment was set for Sunday. That's the initial court appearance, where charges are formally presented.
That's so wild. Events like that are high energy, but when things tip, crowd management has to be sharp. Better training and clear protocols for security teams help, especially when people are, amped up or impaired. The sheriff mentioned intoxication was common at the event. It's not clear whether this particular person was intoxicated, but it does raise questions about oversight, like, are there enough staff on the floor? Are there cool down zones? And are there fast paths to de-escalate before it gets physical? Speaking of public safety and awareness, another long-running issue blends health, local tradition, and the outdoors, and it's been simmering for decades. Next up, the Hudson River fish situation. 50 years on and still complicated. Since 1975, New York has warned against eating most fish from major stretches of the Hudson because of PCB contamination. PCBs are polychlorinated biphenyls, industrial chemicals that stick around in the environment and build up in fish fat. The lower 200 miles of the river were declared a federal Superfund site in 1983. Superfund just means a top priority cleanup program run by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. General Electric, or GE, was the company responsible for the historic discharges. The EPA ordered dredging in 2002 of about 40 miles. GE finished that work in 2015. In a 2025 review, EPA said PCB levels are declining, but progress isn't where it needs to be yet. Advisories remain in place, and some areas are catch and release only, meaning you can fish, but you're not supposed to eat what you catch. Public awareness is uneven. Some anglers still ignore or don't see the warnings. The state plans new advisory signs for summer 2026.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Some of the current signs don't explicitly say PCBs or even spell out the cancer risk in big, bold terms. That's like a clarity problem. I'm down for simple, multilingual straight talk. What fish, how often, what risks, and in plain language. More outreach along popular fishing spots, maybe QR codes with maps and safe species lists. That would help, especially for folks who didn't grow up with this history.
Why wouldn't the signs already be that blunt?
Sometimes it's design trade-offs, multiple languages, limited space, trying not to overwhelm people. But when health is on the line, I'd vote for over-communicating. Clarity first, layout second. Next up. A new report says the legacy of redlining still shows up in Schenectady's school attendance zones. Redlining was the 1930s practice where banks and governments graded neighborhoods. Often immigrant and black neighborhoods were marked as risky in red, and then they were denied loans and investment. Attendance zones are the map lines that decide which school a student attends. The report finds many of today's zones mirror those old lines, and the schools tied to those areas are still under-resourced compared to others. Albany did some blending with open enrollment and magnet programs. Open enrollment lets families apply across zones, and magnet programs are specialized schools, like arts or STEM, designed to draw a mix of students. Schenectady, though, hasn't shifted much, and disparities in home ownership and income persist along racial lines.
That's a thread worth pulling on. Policy shifts can help, redrawing zones, expanding transport for school choice, and growing magnets that actually have seats and supports. I'll give Albany credit for trying to integrate through options. It's not perfect, but it shows that lines on a map aren't destiny. Real talk. Kids shouldn't inherit yesterday's barriers because of a boundary drawn 90 years ago.
Okay, switching gears a bit. Let's move to local energy and planning, another area where community input really matters.
Last up. Northampton in Fulton County is considering a 1-year moratorium on a new battery storage project. A moratorium is a temporary pause to study impacts. This would be the Adirondack Park's first utility-scale battery energy storage system, which is basically a big rechargeable facility that saves electricity for later, balancing supply and demand. The Adirondack Park is that nearly 6 million acre protected region north of us. The Adirondack Park Agency approved the project back in January. Residents have raised fire risk concerns, even with New York's updated safety codes for these systems. Those codes require things like hazard mitigation analysis. That's a formal plan to reduce worst-case risks, and emergency response plans for local fire departments. The developer, Carson Power, says they're monitoring the situation and could adjust. The state's big picture view is that storage is key to cutting greenhouse gas emissions by smoothing out renewable energy.
Yeah, that checks out. Community input matters. These are big installations that people live next to. I'd love to see transparent safety briefings, site design walkthroughs, and hands-on training for first responders before the switch is flipped. You can balance the climate upside with smart siting, fire suppression systems, and, regular drills. That's pretty cool, right? When local knowledge and engineering both show up.
And that's where we'll leave it for now.
Thanks for tuning in to Laid Back Local, the news of the day with Leah and Garrett in Albany, New York. Have a great day and catch us again tomorrow.